Good morning. Welcome to this summary of the first Bible study that took place on October 20th at Orchard Lake Schools. The theme was the Lord's Prayer as it is presented in the Gospel according to Matthew in chapter 6 from verse 9b up to 13. And then also I discuss some general matters as the ways of reading the Bible and the divine inspiration of the Bible. Let me begin with general questions, matters. Beginning with the biblical inspiration, I'm not going to provide here a definition, but I would like to just make this statement that from inside of the book, from reading the Bible, we can get this impression that Bible is not just simply a collection of individual books that would not have links within them. On the contrary, the Bible is an organic unit, a collection of books which are linked. There are several links between different books. One of the clear links is, for example, the prophecies which we have quoted directly or referred to in the New Testament. So those texts from the Old Testament, they get new light now in the New Testament. But there are also several other links within the Bible. I will also make some reference, in particular when I'll be talking also about the biblical context. The second matter is the ways of reading the Bible. Some people just read Bible randomly. It means where it opens, where the eyes will focus, what particular text or verse will pay attention to them. They will just read just maybe few words, the entire verse, few verses, but generally not a larger piece of text, and disconnecting it from the so-called literal context. It means what precedes and what follows, because the literal context is also many times essential for understanding of particular statement. Let me just give an extreme example. In one of the Psalms, we read the statement, "There is no God." But if we get it if we disconnect it from the introduction, because introduction says, "The foolish say there is no God." So cutting out a particular small piece of text, we can reach to wrong conclusion, not necessarily proper. It is something similar what in media is done when you make a longer speech. They just unfortunately will cut off some of your words and present them without the proper context, what you said before, what you said after, and then the whole message would be distorted. Of course, such a way of reading is possible, and many even saints did it, but it is necessary to be aware of the limits of such a method. And also I would like to remind that in the past, the church didn't want the simple Christians to read the Bible to avoid misunderstandings. Now the church encourages people to read. Therefore, I propose another method, which is a more systematic method of reading. For example, reading the entire book, like Gospel of Mark, Matthew, and so on, or just set of books, like all four Gospels, or even the entire New Testament, or who is more ambitious, even the entire Bible. Reading in such a way, we widen our perspective, and we gain also what we call the biblical context, because when we'll be reading a particular text, we may also recall to mind other texts or from the same book or from other books of the Bible, which can illustrate our text that we are reading at this particular moment. And I will illustrate it also on the occasion of the interpretation of the Lord's Prayer. Now let me also make a preliminary statement that the biblical authors, for example, in this case, the evangelists, were the real authors which they also show the artism, they can show also the human limitations, particular ways of expressions, and so on. And also that the evangelists were not just only literally writing what Jesus said, but I would like to compare them more like to artists, something they emphasize more, and therefore each of the evangelists gives us a different picture of Jesus. So having four gospels, we have like four different images, portraits of Jesus. And now let's begin with this interpretation and composition of the Lord's Prayer. Generally, this Lord's Prayer, of course, we have in two versions. In the Gospel according to Matthew, the one that we memorize and we use whenever we say prayers. And there is also a shorter version in the Gospel according to Luke with 5 intercessions, but I will not be talking this time about it. So this longer version in the Gospel according to Matthew, traditionally we divide into two parts. For example, when we say the Rosary, the first part includes 3 intercessions, the other one 4. The question why it is divided, we are not sure why, but we can presume that the first 3 intercessions are directed to God. For example, thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And the other 4 intercessions are directed to us. Give us our daily bread, our trespasses, forgive us, lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. So this is the basic distinction that we could say and we could use. But also let me mention here that since we have 7 intercessions, the number 7 is a symbolic. It expresses the totality, fullness, completeness, perfections. In other words, that by 7 intercessions, this Lord's Prayer is as an example and also embraces all the possible requests we could present to God. Now, since we have 7 intercessions, 7 requests, we can just make a hypothesis that there could be 3 prayers and 1 orphan request. And the whole prayer is addressed to our Father who art in heaven, and then follow these 7 requests. Since I made that hypothesis, so we could now look which requests we could pair, and we can do it just reading from the opposite sides. Hallowed be your name. It can be referred, but deliver us from the evil one. Here I translated this Greek word now by the evil one because I wanted to put this relation. We want the holy name of God be holy, and then in the last intercession we mention the name of the evil one. We name the evil one there. Then the second intercession can be also referred to the last but one. We are asking your kingdom come, but in the last but one, do not lead us into temptation. On one hand, we want that the divine kingdom will come, so the divine realm will come and will be part of it, but we want to avoid by falling into temptation to enter into other kingdom, in the kingdom of the evil one. Then the third intercession and the fifth intercession, both intercessions are conditionally. The condition is introduced by the same particle which I translated as us. You will be done as it is in heaven, also on earth, and forgive us our debts as also we forgive our debtors. So the condition is in those 2 only intercessions mentioned, but also those intercessions, not only formally they are related, but also there is a conceptual link with opposition. We want that the will of God, which is in heaven, will be also in our life, would be fulfilled in our life. But whenever we do not do the will of God, then we sin. But also I translated this Greek word by debts. It means because we do not do what we ought to do, so we become debtors, and therefore consequently we are asking to be forgiven that we didn't do what we supposed to do. Therefore, now summarizing this relation between these three pairs, so in the first side, we have three intercessions which express the elements of the divine realm that we would like to be part of: holy name of God, kingdom of God, and the will of God. Everything we would like that will become in our life also, we would be part of it. And in the last three intercessions, we would like to avoid the three negative aspects which pertain to the kingdom of the evil one. The evil one mentioned in the last one, his temptation, and then consequently, when we fall into temptations, they are our debts. We are indebted to God. And at the center, this orphan intercession is focused on the bread. Give our daily bread, give us today. I translate it also very literally. It is like a double statement in the middle, almost repeating the same thing twice: daily and today. Purposely also I present it as today, because then every day is important, and I will use also it in now in the biblical context. But first also let me mention yet the important fact. Out of all these 7 intercessions, the central one is more suitable to the father, because what father gives to children? Bread, food. All other 6 intercessions are abstract. And also this central intercession in antiquity was interpreted in double way. Those poor communities interpreted it as bread, physical bread where they needed, and wealthy communities immediately switched to spiritual meaning, to the Eucharist. Now, from the biblical context, what this Lord's Prayer, in particular this central intercession, could recall. For example, the manna at the desert, where there was order that they collect it only for a day. Only for the Sabbath day before they could collect it for 2 days. So therefore this strong meaning today, not tomorrow, and so on. And then this also divine pedagogy of giving manna, providing manna on the desert, was with the purpose to teach the Israelites before they will enter the promised land to be dependent on God, to remember that everything what they have or what they will have, they received as a gift from God. And then let me also recall briefly this central intercession with a particular prayer in the book of Proverbs, chapter 30, verses 7 up to 9, the prayer of Agur. I will not quote the entire one, but just make the reference that he wants to avoid poverty and riches, and then he's focusing on the golden rule to get the food that he needs in order to avoid riches, which could lead him to denial of God, or poverty, which could prompt him to do something bad, like for example stealing. If we would now turn the page, we would realize that the Lord's Prayer is in the form of menorah, 7 branches candlestick used in the Jewish liturgy. So this Lord's Prayer is also in this beautiful form of a prayer of this candlestick, the candelabra used for prayers. But also I would like to mention that the same similar composition we can find also in the form of menorah in Psalm 67. So we see now the artism of this expression in this psalm, and in particular how also it focuses on this daily bread, as I also stressed through this biblical context, but other biblical texts support this interpretation, in particular with the stress of today, being dependent on God to receive what is necessary, and also to live, in that case, in dignity of God's children. I would like to wish you nice reflection on this my short presentation, and welcome for the next Bible study if you can come physically. Otherwise, wait for a summary which will be presented on my channel.